Camtasia has some of the best cursor effects I've ever seen in any video editing tool. Today I'm going to highlight some of my favorite ones, and I'll also show you the latest ones that have been introduced into Camtasia 2025. So if you want to learn about cursors, this is the video for you. Really hope you like the video, and as always, if you do, please like it, please share it, please comment on it, and of course join me on my new channel, Screencast Guru. Let's take a look. Okay, so I've recorded something here and I'm just going to play it to you so that you can see the cursor moving, and then we're going to look at some of the effects that we could add to this cursor. So let's just quickly click on the button here and you'll see the cursor moving around on the screen. You can see I click on a few things and I click on something else to open up another page, and I'm doing it again here. And then you're going to see that I'm going to come over to the right hand side and also open up something else. Right, how could we now update the cursor to make it more interesting and look visually better on the screen? Okay, so let's look then at some of the things that we can do. I want to click on that video that I just showed you, and I'm going to come over here on the right hand side, and if you haven't got the properties open, click on the properties, and the tab that you want to click on is the cursor. One of the most obvious things that you can do is to scale up the size of the cursor by just dragging this out, okay, and it will, as you can see, make it a lot bigger. Okay, now you don't want it too big, but if you do want to scale it up, that is an option that you have. So if we now click on this button, you'll see that we've got a lovely big cursor. Obviously the cursor is actually recorded by default. Sometimes people ask me, well, Russell, I don't actually want the cursor. Well, an easy way to get rid of the cursor on any of the videos, so you can click on the video that you want to delete the cursor from, is just to simply reduce the opacity. In fact, you could do it either way. You could reduce the opacity to 0. That will get rid of the, or if you scale it to 0, of course, that will also. In fact, that won't get rid of it. It's still very small. So in fact, what you really want to do then is, let me just bring it back, is always just turn the opacity off. That would get rid of the cursor. Now, one thing to remember is it depends what you click on the timeline. So for example, at the moment I've clicked on this piece of video here, so any changes I'm making are only going to be applied to this part of the video. If I come back to here, then those changes won't be affected. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're working. You know, where are you actually applying your changes to? Now, in my training, the most requested feature is the cursor highlight. That's when it's got like a yellow color around the cursor. And I'm going to show you how you do that, but I'm going to show you also that you can resize the color, make it bigger or smaller. You can change the color, and you can even change the opacity of the color. So let's look at those 3 features now. And don't forget, if the video is useful, please like it. Now, another very obvious change that people like to make, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn that scaling off. So I'm going to put the scale back down to a kind of reasonable size. If we just move that along a little bit, and we'll obviously put the opacity up to full, we'll leave it about that size. What I'm going to do is come over to this side of the screen on the left hand side. I'm going to click on cursor effects, and the most obvious one is just to drag, and again I've selected this part of the video, okay, to just drag and drop that cursor effect onto that part of the video. Now let's say I wanted to also add the cursor effect here. What I could do is just select both of them and then drag it on, and it will be applied to both. Okay, so you do have that option, but I'm just going to apply the cursor effect. Now immediately you'll see that you've now got this yellow highlight around it. And again, if we make sure that we click on the properties, that you've got the properties open, and that you are selected your object on the screen, and you should notice then that you've now got a new property that's been added to the cursor. So that will give you a few properties now, and you'll notice that you can, for example, reduce the opacity down. I like to reduce the opacity to around 50% so that people can see the cursor, but they can also kind of see through it as well. So that highlight effect is really nice. You can increase the size of it as well, which can be quite useful if you really want to make something clear. And the other thing that you can do, I never do this, I really like using yellow, but you can actually, of course, just change and use a different color. So for example, if I clicked here, then it will change, as you can see, to a different color. I'm going to undo that because I prefer the yellow myself. Now, all the features that I'm showing you so far are actually available in previous editions of Camtasia. So not only in Camtasia 2025, you'll find these in previous editions. I'm going to show you another feature that I really like now. So what I've done is I've deleted all the other settings. So we're just going to go back again to a really simple cursor on the screen because I want to show you this. But what I will do is I will come over to the right hand side here and I'm going to scale up the cursor so we see it really nice and big, okay, for this particular example that I want to show you. Now what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to come over to the cursor settings here on the right, click obviously on the cursor effects, and the one that I'm going to drop on this time, and I've got lots of options here and you just might want to play around with a few of these, but one that I do like is I'm going to drop this cursor shadow onto the video, and you'll see straight away that we've got a nice shadow. Now, like everything in Camtasia, you've got the properties. So if we come over to the right hand side, if you now scroll down, because you've added that cursor shadow, you've got the properties, and you can do things like increase the opacity so you can see it really clearly. You can increase the offset, so for example you can have the shadow right out here if you wanted, so you can kind of do that. And then to make it a little bit more natural, sometimes you want to increase the blur, so there's a bit of a blur. So again, the problem is you can't decide to do all of these things. You can't have the highlight tool and the shadow tool, etc, etc. You've really got to make a choice, but you know, that does look really nice, okay? And you've now got a shadow tool, okay, that works instead of perhaps using the highlight tool. And I think the shadow tool works really well when you make the cursor a little bit bigger as well. And it kind of makes it look quite natural. So I train lots of organisations and individuals in using Camtasia. I'm actually a recommended Camtasia trainer. And the next feature that I'm going to show you really surprises a lot of people. When you're looking at the screen and watching the cursor, it's not obvious always that the person is clicking on something. But there is a feature that we can add into Camtasia so that when you do click on something, it shows up really clearly. And I particularly like this feature, and I've begun to add it into my own videos. By the way, if you do want to do training with me, then come over to my website, teachertrainingvideos.com, and you can contact me from there, individual classes, group classes, online and face-to-face. Let's now look at that really excellent click feature in Camtasia. Okay, I'm going to show you a feature that I really like, and what I've done is I've actually applied the feature, and I'm going to show it to you first, and I'm going to explain to you how we've actually done this. So what we've got now is that when the cursor, as it moves and clicks on something, you'll see that there'll be like a little, in fact there'll be some little rings that will appear to kind of show that it's actually that I'm clicking on something. So if I just play this video just a few seconds, you'll see, there we are, I get that little ring. And if I click again, now you're going to see it again. And if I click here, you're going to see it again. And now as I click here, you're going to see it again, okay? So it's a really nice effect. And how you can do that is very simple. Selecting, of course, the piece of video that you want to add the effect to. Come over to your cursor effects here on the right hand side. And then click here on left click. And the one that I chose is rings. And I just drag that on to the screen. Now, I could actually use another one. So if I come over here to the right and I'm going to delete the rings, take them off. Another option could be scaling. So if I click here on the scaling one and drag that on, now it's going to do something slightly different. Let me see if I can just show you this one in action as well. Okay, so if we just come up here and move the playhead back, and we'll be able to watch it now. As I'm just going to play it, you'll see that this time what happens is the cursor gets smaller as it clicks on a particular object. You can see there it gets smaller, gets smaller, gets smaller, gets smaller. So you have that option as well. There's something I really like. Now you can actually do that to the right click as well. Now I don't right click in most of my videos, so there's no need for that, but you have that option. And of course it could be a ripple, it could be a ring, it could be scaling. There's lots of options here. But this is a feature that I really like. And again, that isn't in 2025, that is in earlier editions of Camtasia as well. Okay, let's look at now then some of the 2025 updates. Just one thing, if you like the way that I present with the kind of circle on the screen and the highlight around it and the background, then how I do that, I've made a video that shows you exactly how I do my introductions, and that's on the screen now. Don't forget to like the video if you do like it, and now let's look at some of the updates in 2025. Okay, you can see the cursor moving around on the screen now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the result of a couple of changes that we can now do in 2025, what that cursor might look like. So look at these changes that I'm going to make. I'm going to come over to the cursor effects here. One thing I will do for this video is I'm going to change the color of the cursor by using the cursor color, which is another option that we've got. I'm just going to drop that on. It will change to yellow. I've already made it a little bit bigger, but the changes that I want to make, watch this. I'm going to come down and I'm going to drop on kinetic cursor, and I'm going to drop that on to the video. Come over to the properties on the right hand side, and I'll increase it quite a bit just so that you can really see this working. Now the results will be that the movement of the cursor is much more natural, and what I really like is that the cursor kind of points in the direction that it's moving in. Watch this as I now play the video. And you'll see that movement. Watch this now. See, it points in the direction it's moving in. And I love that little ending as well. As it slows down, it kind of moves a little bit. It looks really natural. Now we can actually add even more to that in terms of making it look even more natural by adding in a motion blur. So if I just drag that onto the screen as well, and this really adds to the almost naturalness of the movement. And I'm going to increase the blur just a little bit, just to increase it, just so you see it. And it just makes the movement look much more natural. So I really like those effects, and I think I'm going to be introducing them into my next videos. Okay, really hope you liked that video, and as I said before, please come over to teachertrainingvideos.com. There is a whole section on using Camtasia. Remember, I am actually a TechSmith Camtasia recommended trainer, and remember, you can contact me if you would like some training either with you as an individual or with your organization and however members. I do run online training, and I do even run sometimes face-to-face training depending on the country. Finally, if you're interested in building up a YouTube channel, because that's what I use predominantly, I use Camtasia for, that is to build up my YouTube channel and make videos on my YouTube channel. And as you can probably see, if you visit teachertrainingvideos.com YouTube channel, I've got more than 80,000 subscribers. How did I do that? I do run a course. You can put your name on the waiting list. You can see it on the front page there. You can sign up, and then the next time that I'm running that course, I'll let you know. It's a course where basically in 2 hours I explain everything. So it's not a long course, it's a webinar where I go through the whole process. I tell you exactly everything that you need to know, and it's going to save you hours and hours and hours of study. That's how I learned, watching many videos on YouTube and doing various courses. I literally summarize everything so you know what I did to get to 80,000 subscribers. I'm going to leave some more videos on the screen now that you might find interesting, and thank you very much.